I am Emily Carter, 28, living in Portland, and last Sunday my parents told me they were cutting me off financially so my younger sister could keep her luxury lifestyle. I sat at the dining table in their suburban house, staring at the roast chicken Mom had just pulled out of the oven, and for a moment I thought I had misheard them. But then my father folded his arms, his wedding band tapping against the wooden table, and repeated it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. Emily, you're old enough to take care of yourself. Lily still needs our support. We can't help both of you, so we've decided. The words hit me like a punch. I felt the air leave my chest, my throat closing tight. Lily, my 22-year-old sister, sat across from me, her manicured nails glinting as she scrolled casually on her iPhone. She smirked without even looking up. I noticed the new gold bracelet circling her wrist, the kind of thing I could never afford, not on a nurse's salary, not while pulling double shifts at Providence Medical Center just to keep rent paid. Wait, I managed, my voice cracking. You're cutting me off? I've been paying my own bills since college. What are you even supporting me with? Mom set the casserole dish down harder than she needed to. The smell of baked cheese filled the room, but my stomach churned. Don't get dramatic, Emily. We've been covering the family phone plan, your health insurance top-ups, and helping here and there. But we can't keep doing that. Lily has grad school, and she deserves to live without stress. I almost laughed, except nothing about it was funny. Lily wasn't in grad school. She dropped out after a semester in Los Angeles and moved back home. Now she posted daily on Instagram about her fashion startup, which, as far as I could tell, was just ordering clothes from Shine and modeling them in the backyard. Dad cleared his throat. You're independent now. You'll be fine. But I wasn't fine. I felt humiliated, like the rug had been pulled out from under me in front of the very people who should have had my back. My palms sweated. I squeezed the edge of my old leather wallet, tucked in my lap like a talisman. It was cracked and worn. A birthday gift from Grandma when I turned 16. She had slipped a note inside back then. Always keep track of what's yours. 4 years it carried only receipts and a couple of faded photos, but now it felt like the only anchor I had. Of course she'll be fine, Lily finally chimed in, her tone dripping with mock sympathy. Emily loves working, right? She's like obsessed with her little scrubs. Meanwhile, I have to think about my brand image. You guys understand. She flipped her hair and laughed at her own words. Heat surged to my face. You think my job is a joke? Do you even realize who pays your car insurance? Who stays up all night so strangers can breathe again? You wouldn't last an hour in my shoes, Lily. Emily, Dad snapped, slapping the table once. The silverware rattled. That's enough. We won't have jealousy at this table. Jealousy. That word sliced through me more sharply than anything else. I wasn't jealous, I was angry, heartbroken, betrayed. I pushed my chair back, the legs screeching against the hardwood floor. My knees shook, but I forced myself to stand tall. If you want to spoil her, fine. But don't you dare pretend this is fair. Don't you dare call me jealous for working my ass off. Silence fell, thick and heavy. The only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock, and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Mom's face hardened. Don't talk to your father that way. But I couldn't stop. My chest was tight, my pulse racing in my ears. You've always done this, always. Every birthday, every holiday, it's always about Lily. I'm done. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair and clutched the wallet so tightly my knuckles whitened. Emily, Dad said, his voice booming now. If you walk out, don't expect us to fix this later. I turned, hand on the doorknob. My throat burned, eyes stinging, but I refused to let them see me cry. Maybe I don't want you to fix it. I stepped into the chilly Portland evening, the air damp with the smell of rain on asphalt. My breath fogged in front of me as I marched down the driveway, past Lily's shiny new Mercedes parked smugly at the curb. My own 10-year-old Corolla sat a few feet away, the paint chipped, the bumper taped after a fender bender. Still, it was mine. I unlocked it with trembling hands and slid inside, slamming the door harder than I meant to. The leather wallet lay in my lap. I opened it automatically, staring at the scraps of receipts. Groceries from Safeway, gas from Chevron, a Starbucks cup sleeve with Rachel's doodle on it. My life in scraps, so modest compared to Lily's constant stream of luxury bags and spa visits. But at least it was real. I put the key in the ignition, but my hands were shaking too much to turn it. Instead, I dropped my forehead against the steering wheel and let the tears come, hot and bitter. For years I had told myself my parents' favoritism was small, survivable. But tonight proved it wasn't small. It was everything. And still, under the ache, a single thought nagged me, sharp and persistent. How could they afford all of Lily's luxuries when they always claimed money was tight? I lifted my head, swiping mascara smudges from under my eyes. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A notification from my bank app. Picked it up. At first I almost ignored it, but the subject line made my stomach lurch. Withdrawal notice. Joint family account. Joint account, the one I hadn't touched since I was a teenager, the one Dad swore he closed years ago. Why was there still activity? Why under my name? The tears dried instantly. My pulse spiked again, but this time with a different kind of adrenaline, suspicion, curiosity, maybe even a spark of rage. I gripped the wallet tighter, hearing Grandma's voice echo in my memory. Always keep track of what's yours. I didn't know yet that this small notification would unravel everything I thought I knew about my family. But in that dark driveway, rain starting to patter on the windshield, I made a silent vow. I was going to find out. The next morning my alarm buzzed at 5:15 a.m., dragging me out of a restless sleep. My apartment smelled faintly of last night's microwaved ramen, and the rain outside had turned into a steady Portland drizzle tapping against the window. I slipped into my navy scrubs, stuffed my hair into a messy bun, and grabbed my battered leather wallet from the counter. The old thing was heavier than usual, maybe because of the weight of what I had discovered the night before. Driving through slick streets toward Providence Medical Center, my mind kept circling back to that bank notification. A joint account. Under my name. I couldn't shake it. Dad had told me it was closed when I was 19. Why was there still activity in 2023? And why now, on the same night they cut me off? At the hospital, I tried to lose myself in the routine. The smell of antiseptic hit me as soon as I walked through the automatic doors. Machines beeped in the ICU, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I checked vitals, adjusted for drips, and soothed anxious families. My hands worked from muscle memory, but my brain was somewhere else entirely. During my 10-minute break, I stood in line at Starbucks across the street. The woman in front of me tapped her iPhone, ordering a caramel macchiato without glancing up. I ordered a plain black coffee, cheapest on the menu, and fumbled with my debit card. Behind me, a student nurse scrolled Instagram, giggling. I glanced at her phone screen and froze. It was Lily's post. A glossy photo of her leaning against her new Mercedes, captioned, "Grind never stops. Blessed with supportive parents. Hashtag thanks Mom and Dad." Over 200 likes already, heart emojis pouring in. My stomach twisted. How many people thought she'd earned any of that? When I got back to my break room, I texted Rachel. "They cut me off last night. Said Lily needs the money. Also, something weird with the bank." Her reply came seconds later. "What? Call me tonight. Don't let this slide." The rest of my shift blurred. A code blue jolted me back into the present. An elderly man gasping for breath, the whole team rushing in. For 20 frantic minutes I was nothing but hands and instincts. Compressions, oxygen, sweat dripping down my back. When he stabilized, my knees nearly buckled with relief. That was real life. Real work. Not Instagram filters. But the bitterness returned as soon as I clocked out and stepped back into the drizzle. My Corolla's engine coughed to life. On the passenger seat my phone buzzed again. This time a group chat notification. Family dinner updates. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got me. "Mom. Don't worry about Emily's drama last night. She'll be fine. Lily honey, don't let it upset you." Dad. "Exactly. Jealousy is ugly. Focus on your goals." Lily. "LOL, I'm not upset. Some people just can't handle success." My hands shook around the steering wheel. Jealousy. That word again. They really believed it or wanted to. I drove home in silence, windshield wipers squeaking against the glass. When I got inside my apartment, the smell of damp carpet greeted me. I tossed my wallet onto the counter, pulled out my laptop, and logged into my online banking. My heart pounded as the screen loaded. There it was. Joint account 7421. Still active. Balance. $12,486. Transactions. Monthly withdrawals, each labeled transfer to Lily C. I covered my mouth with both hands, staring at the glowing numbers. They weren't just spoiling her. They were funneling money directly from an account in my name. The wallet lay open beside my laptop, a folded slip of paper sticking out. Grandma's old note. Always keep track of what's yours. For the first time in years I felt her presence beside me. And for the first time I knew this wasn't just favoritism. It was theft. I snapped the laptop shut, adrenaline roaring through me. Tomorrow I would confront them. But tonight I sat on the edge of my couch, clutching that wallet like it was the only solid thing in my life. What I didn't know yet was that once I started pulling at this thread, everything, every lie, every excuse, every family dinner, was about to unravel. Thanksgiving came a week later, and against my better judgment, I drove to my parents' house. The rain had eased into a gray mist that clung to the windshield, blurring the familiar streets. My leather wallet sat in the passenger seat, heavier than ever, like it knew I was carrying more than just receipts inside. I had printed the bank statement and tucked it deep in one of its compartments, but tonight I wasn't ready to unleash it. Not yet. The house smelled of cinnamon and roasting turkey the moment I walked in. The dining room glowed with warm light, the table already set with Mom's best china. Lily stood near the kitchen island, laughing loudly into her phone, her silk blouse spotless, a diamond pendant winking at her throat. "Emily, you made it." Mom's smile was tight, almost rehearsed. She took the pumpkin pie from my hands and set it aside with a faint wrinkle of her nose. "You didn't need to bring anything. We have plenty. It's homemade," I said softly, brushing rain from my jacket. "I thought." Before I could finish, Lily leaned over the dish. "Oh my God. Did you seriously bake this yourself? That's cute." She smirked, then turned back to her phone. "Hold on, guys, my sister still thinks she's on Food Network or something." Heat surged to my face. I wanted to shout, to pull out the bank statement right then and there, slam it on the table and demand answers. But the smell of turkey, the clink of silverware, the sight of my father carving meat with perfect precision, it all froze me. Dinner began. Everyone piled food onto their plates. My casserole sat untouched near the edge of the table. Dad raised his glass. "To Lily," he said proudly, "for working so hard on her business this year. We're all proud of you." The table erupted in polite claps. My fork slipped from my fingers, clattering against the porcelain plate. I stared at him, disbelief knotting in my chest. Hard work. Her business was siphoning my name, my account, my credit. I opened my mouth, but Mom cut in, her voice sweet as syrup. "And Emily brought her little casserole again. Isn't that thoughtful?" She chuckled as though the dish was some long-running joke. Lily covered her mouth, laughing. "Tradition, right? Maybe one day it'll taste as expensive as it looks." The laughter stung like ice water down my spine. My throat tightened, eyes burning. Around me, forks scraped plates, glasses clinked, conversation flowed. To everyone else, I was invisible. I excused myself to the bathroom. Inside, I gripped the edge of the sink, my reflection fractured in the cheap mirror. My chest heaved. Tears blurred my vision. I yanked open my wallet, pulled out the bank statement, and stared at the rows of transactions. Each line screamed the truth no one else wanted to see. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Rachel. "You okay? Remember, you don't deserve this." I swallowed hard, blinking at the screen. No, I wasn't okay. But maybe soon I would be done being silent. When I returned to the table, the laughter still buzzed, louder than ever. Lily snapped another selfie. Mom bragged about her entrepreneurial spirit. Dad poured more wine. Nobody looked at me. I sat down, pushing food around my plate, my heart pounding louder than the chatter. The statement burned against my wallet, a secret weapon waiting for the right moment. But I couldn't stay. My chair scraped against the hardwood as I stood abruptly. "Thanks for dinner," I muttered, my voice shaking. "I have to go." Mom frowned. "Already? Don't be rude." I ignored her. My hands trembled as I grabbed my coat. My chest ached, but my legs carried me out the door before I could break down. The cold mist hit my face like a slap. I inhaled sharply, gripping the wallet through my jacket pocket. My car was waiting, silent, dependable. As I slid behind the wheel, I whispered to myself, "Next time I won't walk away. Next time I'll show them." And though I didn't know it yet, next time was coming sooner than I imagined. The morning after Thanksgiving, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, half asleep under the thin blanket in my tiny apartment, I thought it was work calling me in early. But when I reached for the phone, the bright screen showed 47 new messages in the family group chat. I opened it and my stomach sank. Mom. Emily walked out like a child. We can't reward that behavior. Dad. She embarrassed us in front of Lily's friends. Completely ungrateful. Aunt Karen chimed in. I've always noticed she has a jealous streak. Sad really. Lily. Don't worry, I'm fine. Some people just can't handle success. The words blurred as tears pricked my eyes. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, itching to defend myself. Instead, I dropped the phone on the couch cushion, pressing the heels of my palms into my eyes. The truth, the bank statement, was burning a hole in my wallet, but somehow I was still the villain in their story. I dragged myself through my shift at the hospital, but the messages replayed in my head with every four I checked, every chart I filled. When I finally sat in my car that evening, the smell of antiseptic still clinging to my scrubs, I opened the group chat again. More messages had poured in. Cousins I barely spoke to piling on, uncles just concerned, all of them echoing the same thing. Jealous, dramatic, overreacting. Gaslighting in full force. I texted Rachel. They're all against me. Even extended family. Like a smear campaign. She replied instantly. That's what abusers do. They control the narrative. You need evidence. I glanced at the wallet on the passenger seat. I had evidence. But evidence wasn't enough, I needed courage. That night, I sat cross-legged on my couch, laptop open. I pulled up my credit report, my hands trembling as I typed in my social security number. The page loaded slowly, the wheel spinning, my heartbeat louder with every second. When it finally appeared, my mouth went dry. 2 credit cards opened in my name. 1 loan account I had never authorized. Balances climbing into the thousands. I whispered into the quiet room. Oh my God. The leather wallet lay open beside me, Grandma's note peeking out. Always keep track of what's yours. My throat tightened. She had tried to prepare me for this. I printed the report, added it to the growing folder inside the wallet. Receipts, statements, slips of paper. Each one another piece of the puzzle. But the puzzle wasn't just financial. It was personal. They weren't just spoiling Lily. They were dismantling me, one lie at a time. The next day, I confronted Mom on the phone. Why is there still a joint account under my name? Why are there loans I didn't open? Her voice stayed calm, too calm. Emily, you must be mistaken. Maybe you forgot. You've always been careless with paperwork. I'm not careless, I snapped. My voice cracked, but I didn't back down. I have the statements. Transfers to Lily every month. A pause. Then she sighed, long and theatrical. This jealousy is eating you alive. You need to let it go. Family helps each other. Family helps each other. The words dripped with irony. Helping Lily by destroying me. I hung up before she could say more, hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. My chest ached, but somewhere under the ache, a spark of anger glowed. Anger was better than despair. Later that evening, Uncle Mike called. His gravelly voice cut through the static. Emily, you need to dig deeper. Don't trust what they say. Follow the money. Uncle Mike, do you know something? He hesitated. Just check their accounts. You'll see. The line went dead, leaving me clutching the phone, the rain pounding against my window. For the first time in weeks, I felt less alone. I pulled the wallet closer, slipping Uncle Mike's words into the folder with the rest. Follow the money. And as I lay awake that night, listening to the distant hum of freeway traffic, I promised myself. Next time I wouldn't just defend myself. I would fight back. Saturday afternoon, I met Rachel at our usual coffee shop, a cozy corner cafe near the Portland State campus. The place smelled of espresso and cinnamon scones, the chatter of students blending with the hiss of the milk steamer. I slid into the booth across from her, my leather wallet heavy in my tote bag. Rachel leaned forward, her brows knit. You look like hell. What happened this time? I pulled out the bank statements and credit reports, spreading them across the table. Her eyes widened as she skimmed the pages. This isn't just favoritism, she whispered. This is fraud, Em. They're using your identity. Hearing the word out loud made my chest tighten, but it also brought clarity. Fraud. Not jealousy. Not drama. Fraud. Uncle Mike told me to check their accounts, I said. I think he knows more than he's letting on. Rachel tapped a manicured finger against the statement. You need legal advice. Even just a consultation. Don't sit on this. I nodded, chewing my lip. I'm scared. If I take this to a lawyer, it'll blow up the family. There's no going back. Her gaze softened. Emily, they already blew up the family. You're just uncovering it. Her words lingered long after I left the cafe. The taste of burnt coffee still on my tongue. That evening my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Jessica. Hey, I saw things got heated. I'm on your side, just so you know. Family can be rough. If you want to vent, I'm here. Relief washed over me. Finally, someone besides Uncle Mike and Rachel. I typed back quickly. Thanks. I feel like everyone thinks I'm crazy. Jessica replied with a string of sympathetic emojis and promises to keep things between us. I let myself believe her. I needed to. But 2 hours later, Lily posted a cryptic Instagram story. A screenshot of a text, my text. I feel like everyone thinks I'm crazy. She'd scribbled laughing emojis across it, tagging #drama_queen. My stomach dropped. Jessica, she had screenshotted me and sent it straight to Lily. I threw my phone onto the couch, my pulse racing. Betrayal burned hotter than anger. Even the people who pretended to understand were feeding me to the wolves. I opened the wallet, sliding Jessica's name onto a slip of paper. A list was forming inside, who I could trust, who I couldn't. The leather edges felt rough against my fingertips, grounding me. Later that night my phone rang. Uncle Mike again. His voice was low, urgent. Emily, don't tell anyone what you found. Not cousins, not even family friends. They'll twist it. Keep your circle tight. I pressed the phone to my ear, the apartment dark except for the glow of a single lamp. I thought Jessica was safe. She sold me out. I know, he said simply. That's why I called. They're scared. The fact that you're digging makes them nervous. Use that. After the call, I sat on the couch for a long time, staring at the wallet in my lap. Inside it, the growing folder of papers rustled like a secret heartbeat. Evidence. Allies. Enemies. It was all in there now. Rachel's words echoed. They already blew up the family. Uncle Mike's advice overlapped. Use that. For the first time I felt a glimmer of power. Small, fragile, but real. And as I turned off the lamp and let the apartment fall into darkness, one thought sharpened in my mind. If they wanted to paint me as the villain, maybe it was time I stopped playing defense. Sunday morning, Portland skies were pale gray, clouds hanging low like a heavy blanket. I sat cross-legged on my living room floor. The carpet rough beneath me, papers spread out like puzzle pieces. Bank statements, credit reports, screenshots of group chats. Every fragment of my family's betrayal staring back at me. My leather wallet lay open in the center, its compartments stuffed to the point of bursting. I was exhausted, but I felt a shift like the first ray of sun after weeks of rain. For the first time I had something tangible. Not just feelings, not just memories of slights. Evidence. Rachel showed up with 2 coffees, her hair damp from the drizzle. She set one down in front of me. Triple shot latte for your nerves, she said, then crouched down to study the papers. You've done half the work already, she murmured. Now you need someone who knows the system. I raised an eyebrow. You mean a lawyer? She nodded. My cousin works at a legal aid clinic. Not corporate, but she can at least explain your options. And it's free. The thought made my stomach flip. Legal aid meant this wasn't just family drama. It was real, serious, possibly criminal. But then I pictured Lily's smug smile, the endless comments calling me jealous. A spark of determination lit inside me. Set it up, I whispered. Rachel smiled. That's the Emily I know. Later that afternoon, I drove to the library to print more documents. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the smell of old paper lingering in the air. As the printer spat out another sheet, I noticed something in the corner of the statement. My social security number, partially blacked out. It hit me, this wasn't just money. This was identity theft. I slid the papers into my wallet, zipping it shut with a sharp sound. The wallet wasn't just a keepsake anymore. It was a vault. That evening I sat at my tiny kitchen table, spooning leftover soup while the rain drummed against the window. Uncle Mike called again. His voice was steady, but there was something heavier in it this time. Emily, listen to me. Don't let them guilt you. They'll tell you family loyalty comes first. But loyalty doesn't mean letting yourself be destroyed. I swallowed hard, my spoon clinking against the bowl. Why are you helping me? A pause, then. Because I saw what they did to your mom's cousin years ago. Different story, same tactics. She never fought back. She lost everything. His words sank deep, chilling and strengthening at once. When I hung up, I opened my laptop and created a folder labeled my case. I uploaded every scan, every screenshot. For the first time I felt like I was building something, armor maybe, or a weapon. Before bed, I tucked the leather wallet under my pillow. Silly maybe, but it felt like keeping a guardian close. Lying in the dark, the city hum faint through my window, I whispered to myself, I'm not crazy. I'm not jealous. I'm right. And though fear still coiled in my stomach, hope flickered brighter than it had in months. Little did I know, the very next week would bring the revelation that changed everything. The following Friday, Uncle Mike asked me to meet him at a quiet diner on the east side of town. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths, neon lights flickering in the window, and the smell of fried onions hanging in the air. I slid into the booth, my leather wallet tucked securely in my tote, and wrapped my hands around the chipped coffee mug the waitress set down. Mike looked tired. His salt and pepper hair unkempt, his jacket smelling faintly of motor oil. He leaned in, lowering his voice. Emily, there's something you need to know. I can't keep pretending I don't see it. My pulse quickened. What is it? He pulled out a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. I work part-time at a local accounting office. A few weeks ago I saw tuition invoices double billed. Lily's name was on them. But the payments? They were linked to an account in your social. I froze, coffee halfway to my lips. Double billed? As in, she wasn't even enrolled anymore. He nodded grimly. They paid fake invoices. Money funneled out under your identity. That's why the numbers never made sense. The diner noise seemed to fade, replaced by the pounding of my heartbeat. So they've been stealing from me, not just covering for her laziness. They've been using me as a bank. Mike's gaze was steady. Exactly. And if the IRS catches it before you do, guess whose name is on the line? I pressed my hands against the wallet in my lap, feeling the rough leather beneath my palms. Grandma's voice echoed again. Always keep track of what's yours. I knew it, I whispered. I knew something didn't add up. Mike reached across the table, his hand heavy on mine. You can't keep quiet anymore, kid. This isn't about family drama. It's about your future. I swallowed hard, blinking against the sting in my eyes. If I expose them, everything changes. They'll hate me. They already treat you like they do, he said softly. Better to be hated for telling the truth than destroyed for staying silent. When I left the diner, the evening air was sharp, rain-soaked pavement glistening under the streetlights. I clutched my wallet against my chest, the folder inside now heavier with Uncle Mike's revelation. At home I spread everything on the table again. The invoices, the statements, the credit report, pieces of a puzzle that painted a picture I could no longer deny. My parents hadn't just favored Lily. They had orchestrated a scheme in my name, hoping I'd never notice. For hours I sat staring at the papers, my mind replaying every moment of dismissal. Every time they called me jealous or dramatic. Maybe they needed me to believe that so I wouldn't look closer. By midnight, I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Not just notes, vows. I will not stay silent. I will protect what's mine. I will not let them gaslight me again. My handwriting shook, ink smudging under my fingers, but each line steadied me. I tucked the notebook into my wallet, sliding it alongside the growing evidence. The leather creaked, stretched, but held. Lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, my heart beat faster. Not from fear this time, but from resolve. I whispered into the dark. This ends with me. And though I didn't know how yet, I knew the next move was mine to make. Monday morning I stood outside the glass doors of a local credit union, rain dripping from the awning onto my shoulders. My leather wallet felt unusually heavy in my tote, stuffed with every receipt, statement, and note I had gathered. My breath clouded in the cold air as I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The lobby smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and coffee. A woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a name badge reading Denise Financial Advisor waved me over. I introduced myself, my voice trembling as I explained why I was there. Identity theft? She asked gently, sliding a notepad across the desk. Let's take a look. I pulled out the documents, the wallet creaking as I unzipped it. The stack of papers spilled across her desk. Bank statements with Lily's name. Credit cards I never opened. Loan accounts I never authorized. Denise scanned the pages, her brow furrowing deeper with each sheet. Emily, this isn't just minor. This is serious. These accounts are active, and they're tied directly to your social security number. The room seemed to tilt. My palms grew clammy against the edge of the desk. So what do I do? She tapped her pen against the notepad. First, we file fraud alerts with all 3 credit bureaus. Then we freeze your credit so no more accounts can be opened. You'll also need to file a police report. And I recommend you speak to a lawyer. Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact, but each step felt like a stone dropping into my stomach. Police report. Lawyer. Fraud alerts. My own family had pushed me into this maze. Denise leaned closer. You're not alone in this. It happens more often than you think. The difference is you caught it. Her words steadied me. For the first time in weeks I didn't feel crazy. By the end of the appointment, I held a folder full of notarized forms and copies of fraud alerts. The leather wallet barely closed around them. As I zipped it shut, the sound felt like armor locking into place. That evening I called Rachel. She picked up on the first ring. Well, I froze my credit, I said, pacing my kitchen. Filed alerts. I'm supposed to go to the police next. Rachel, they used me. For years. Her silence stretched for a moment. Then good. You're taking control. Now we hit back. I sank into a chair, the vinyl creaking beneath me. I don't know if I'm ready for the fight. She snorted softly. You've already been in the fight. You just didn't know it. Later I sat at my kitchen table, sorting through the papers again. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. My pen scratched across a timeline I was building, dates, amounts, account numbers. The pattern became clearer with every line. They hadn't just dipped into my name occasionally. They had built Lily's lifestyle on my back, her Mercedes, her so-called startup, her tuition invoices. All of it flowed through me. I stared at the timeline until the ink blurred. My jaw ached from clenching, but I felt something shift inside me. Not just anger. Strategy. I grabbed my notebook and wrote a single line at the top of a fresh page. Counterattack begins now. The wallet snapped shut with a decisive click. And as I leaned back, listening to the rain patter against my window, I realized this wasn't about proving my innocence anymore. It was about exposing their guilt. Saturday evening, I drove to my parents' house, my heart pounding against my ribs. The wipers squeaked across the windshield, smearing the misty rain into streaks. My leather wallet sat in the passenger seat, stuffed so full it could barely close. Inside, the timeline, the fraud alerts, the statements, weapons. When I pulled into the driveway, Lily's Mercedes gleamed under the streetlight like a trophy. My Corolla wheezed as I cut the engine. I sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, whispering to myself, "You're not crazy. You're not jealous. You're right." Inside, the house smelled of lemon cleaner and roasted chicken. Mom was at the kitchen island arranging salad. Dad leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. Lily perched on a stool, nails painted fresh red, smirking when she saw me. "Well, look who decided to show up," she said. "Did you come to apologize?" I dropped my wallet onto the granite island with a heavy thud. Papers spilled out, sliding across the glossy surface. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I came to show you what you've done." Dad frowned, pushing his glasses up. "What's this?" "Bank statements. Credit reports. Fraud alerts," I said, tapping the stack with my finger. "All in my name. All traced back to you and Lily." Mom let out a sharp laugh. "Emily, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. You probably forgot opening those accounts." My hands trembled, but I pushed through. "I didn't forget. I never opened them. And these?" I slid the double-billed tuition invoices toward Dad. "Prove it." Silence thickened the room. The refrigerator hummed. Lily's smirk faltered for the first time. Dad cleared his throat, voice hardening. "You're making accusations you don't understand. Family helps family. We did what we had to do." My stomach turned. Helping family doesn't mean stealing their identity. Doesn't mean ruining their credit. Do you even realize what you've risked? The IRS could come after me. Mom's face tightened, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. We sacrificed everything for you girls. And now you want to throw us in jail. I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. No. I want you to admit what you did. The air crackled. For a moment no one spoke. Then Lily scoffed, her voice sharp. God, Emily, you're so dramatic. Dad just managed things for you. If your credit's wrecked, that's your fault for not checking. Rage surged, hot and electric. Managed things? You bought a Mercedes with money tied to my social. You call that management? Lily looked away, her nails tapping nervously against the counter. Dad's jaw clenched. Enough. Put this nonsense away. We won't talk about it again. I shoved the papers back toward him, the edges scraping the granite. We will talk about it. As I filed fraud alerts. And if you don't make this right, the police will. The color drained from Mom's face. Dad slammed his palm against the counter, the sound echoing through the kitchen. How dare you threaten us after everything we've done for you? My knees shook, but I stood taller. You didn't do it for me. You did it for her. I pointed at Lily. And you thought I'd never notice. You thought calling me jealous would shut me up. But I'm done being quiet. For the first time Dad looked away. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but he didn't move to answer it. Mom's lips trembled. Lily's smirk was gone completely, replaced by something like fear. The silence stretched, suffocating. Finally, I gathered the papers, slipping them back into my wallet with a decisive zip. You have 1 week, I said, my voice shaking but strong. 1 week to make it right. I turned, the sound of my boots on the hardwood loud in the stunned quiet. As I opened the door, the night air rushed in, cold and damp, carrying the smell of wet leaves. Behind me, Mom's voice broke the silence, trembling. Emily, wait. But I didn't. I stepped into the rain, the wallet pressed against my chest, and let the door slam shut. The week crawled by like a storm cloud hanging overhead. I worked my shifts at the hospital, but every beep of the monitors, every drip of the 4 bags, felt muffled behind the pounding thought. 1 week. 1 week until everything changes. Friday evening I got the call. It wasn't from my parents. It was from the bank. The representative's voice was crisp, professional. Miss Carter, we've completed the audit you requested. There's something you need to know. I sat on the edge of my bed, my leather wallet heavy beside me. Go on. Several of the funds tied to the joint account weren't withdrawals. They were transfers, from an investment account opened in your name when you were a minor. My stomach dropped. An investment account? I never opened one. That's correct. It was opened by your parents as custodian, but here's the issue. The funds were meant to roll over into your sole ownership when you turned 21. Instead, those funds were redirected into another account, benefiting your sister. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The buzzing in my ears drowned everything else out. The money wasn't just theirs. It was mine. An inheritance account. The rep continued. Legally, that money belongs to you. The transfers appear unauthorized. You may want to consult legal counsel immediately. I hung up, my fingers numb around the phone. The wallet slid into my lap. I unzipped it, pulled out Grandma's note, the ink faded but clear. Always keep track of what's yours. Tears blurred my vision. She had known. She had tried to warn me. The next day, I stormed into my parents' house, papers clutched tight. The living room smelled faintly of lemon polish and stale coffee. Dad looked up from his recliner, startled. Mom froze in the kitchen doorway. Lily sat on the couch, scrolling her phone. I dropped the bank's report onto the coffee table. You didn't just use my name for loans. You stole my inheritance. Mom's face paled. Dad's jaw tightened. Emily, calm down. Don't you dare tell me to calm down. My voice cracked, echoing off the walls. That money was mine. Grandma set it up for me, and you drained it for Lily's designer bags and fake tuition invoices. Lily's head snapped up, eyes wide. Wait, what? I turned to her, fury burning. Oh, you didn't know? Every penny you've been flaunting came from an account in my name. Not Mom and Dad's generosity. Mine. For the first time, Lily's smug mask cracked. She looked between them, panic flickering across her face. Is that true? Mom wrung her hands, her voice breaking. We had to keep the family together. By stealing from me? I shot back. Dad slammed his fist on the armrest, his face red. It was all for the family. Money isn't everything. I leaned forward, my breath trembling. Then why did you risk prison to steal it? The room fell into stunned silence. Even Lily didn't speak. I gathered the papers back into my wallet, zipping it shut with a sharp finality. I'm done being your bank. The next conversation will be through my lawyer. As I walked out, the sound of Lily's voice followed me, shaking, broken. Mom? Dad? Tell me it's not true. The door clicked shut behind me, the cold air rushing in like freedom. The following Tuesday, I sat in a polished conference room at a downtown law office, fluorescent lights humming softly overhead. The air smelled faintly of leather chairs and fresh paper. My leather wallet rested on the table in front of me, swollen with documents. Every zipper, every crease felt like armor. Across from me sat Mom, Dad, and Lily, their lawyer. A man in a gray suit with slicked back hair, flipped through a file. My own attorney, a calm woman named Janet with sharp eyes and a voice like steel, sat by my side. Dad cleared his throat, his face red around the edges. This is a family matter. We don't need strangers involved. Janet didn't flinch. When fraud is involved, Mr. Carter, strangers become necessary. The words landed like a slap. Mom clasped her hands tightly, her knuckles white. Lily shifted in her chair, eyes downcast, no longer smug but visibly shaken. I pulled out the bank's audit, sliding it across the table. The account was mine. Grandma left it for me. You siphon every penny into Lily's lifestyle. That's not family support. That's theft. The lawyer for my parents leaned back smoothly. Let's not use such loaded terms. Your parents acted in good faith, believing they had discretion. Janet cut in. Custodial accounts transfer to the beneficiary at 21. My client is 28. That's 7 years of unauthorized use. We could pursue criminal charges. The room went ice cold. Mom gasped. Dad's hand slammed against the table, rattling the pens. You wouldn't dare. I met his gaze, my own voice steady though my heart raced. I already did. Fraud alerts are filed. Credit is frozen. If you don't resolve this today, the next knock on your door will be from the police. Silence pressed heavy on the room. Lily finally looked up, her eyes glassy. You really used her inheritance? Mom's voice cracked. We just wanted to give you a good life, sweetie. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. She pushed her chair back slightly as if recoiling. At her expense? You didn't even tell me. You made me think. She broke off, shaking her head. The lawyer cleared his throat. Perhaps we can discuss a settlement, return of funds over time, relinquishment of certain assets. Janet leaned forward. We'll require a written agreement today. A repayment plan with enforceable terms. Or we escalate. Dad muttered under his breath. But the fight had drained from his posture. He looked older, smaller, cornered. I pulled the wallet closer, unzipping it slowly. The sound filled the silence. I removed Grandma's note, laying it on top of the documents. She told me to keep track of what's mine. I didn't, and you exploited that. But it ends here. The lawyer scribbled notes. Papers shuffled. Eventually, a draft agreement slid across the table. Repayment schedule. Asset liquidation. Formal acknowledgement of misuse. Dad signed first, his jaw clenched, hand shaking slightly. Mom followed, tears streaking down her cheeks. When the pen landed in Lily's hand, she hesitated, eyes flicking to me. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, I said softly, though bitterness curled inside me. But you lived it anyway. She pressed the pen to the paper, her signature sprawling across the line. As Janet gathered the documents, I zipped the wallet shut one final time. The click echoed in my chest like a victory drum. But as we walked out of the office, she glanced at me. This isn't over. Agreements can break. People can backslide. Be ready. I nodded, clutching the wallet tight. Outside, the wind whipped cold, but for the first time, I felt a sliver of control. Little did I know the biggest storm was still ahead. 3 weeks later, I walked into the lawyer's office again. This time with the storm raging inside me. Janet had called that morning. They missed their first payment. And worse, they tried to contest the agreement. The conference room felt colder than before. Rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city skyline blurred behind droplets. My leather wallet rested in front of me like a shield, its zipper straining from the weight of documents. Dad sat across the table, his tie loose, eyes bloodshot. Mom clutched a tissue, dabbing at her nose, mascara smudged. Lily perched between them, her arms crossed, her voice sharp before anyone else could speak. This is ridiculous. Emily doesn't need the money. She has a job. I don't see why she's ruining the family over numbers on a page. Numbers. That word lit the fire in my chest. I leaned forward, slamming my palm against the table. The sound cracked through the room. Numbers? Those numbers were my future. My credit. My security. You lived in luxury while I worked double shifts, falling asleep in my car after 14 hours on my feet. Lily's face flushed, but she smirked, deflecting. You're just bitter. Before I could reply, Janet laid out the breach notice. Your client signed an agreement to repay stolen funds. They missed their first payment and attempted to revoke the agreement. That is fraud stacked on fraud. The other lawyer shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tight. We're prepared to negotiate. I cut him off. My voice shook, but it was clear. No. Not this time. I'm done negotiating with thieves. Mom burst into tears. Emily, please. We thought we were doing the right thing. Family should share. Family doesn't steal, I shot back. Family doesn't gaslight you into thinking you're crazy just to cover their lies. The silence was suffocating. Only the rain filled it, pattering against the glass. My pulse roared in my ears. Slowly I unzipped the wallet. The sound sliced through the quiet. I pulled out Grandma's note, then laid it on top of the latest bank report. She trusted you to protect me. Instead, you betrayed both of us. Dad's fists clenched, veins rising on his forearms. You think you're better than us? You think waving papers around makes you righteous? I held his stare, my chest tight but my voice steady. No. But it makes me free. Janet slid a final document across the table. A formal filing prepared for court. Unless immediate restitution is made today, this goes to the district attorney. The color drained from Dad's face. Mom covered her mouth with her hands. Lily looked around wildly, like a cornered animal. For a moment the room was frozen, suspended in the weight of everything unsaid. Then Dad reached for the pen, his hand shaking so hard the tip scratched the paper. Mom signed next, sobbing. Lily signed last, silent, her eyes glistening with something between shame and anger. I gathered the papers into my wallet, zipping it shut with finality. The click echoed in the sterile room. As I stood, my knees felt weak, but I didn't falter. I looked at them one last time. You taught me loyalty. You taught me sacrifice. But today I taught myself something better: boundaries. I walked out into the storm, rain soaking my scrubs, my wallet clutched to my chest. The cold air filled my lungs, sharp and cleansing. For the first time I felt the weight lifting, not gone yet but shifting. I didn't know what the aftermath would look like. But I knew this. I had survived the fight. And I had won. The days after the confrontation felt eerily quiet, like the house after a thunderstorm. No buzzing family group chats, no calls from Mom demanding I come talk it out. No sarcastic posts from Lily. Just silence. At first I thought the quiet would feel like peace. Instead it felt like standing in an empty room with all the windows open, wind whistling through the cracks. One evening I drove to my parents' neighborhood, not to see them but to pack up what little of mine still lived in their house. My Corolla hummed down the familiar street, headlights sweeping across manicured lawns. When I pulled into their driveway, the house loomed dark. Only a porch light glowed, casting a pale circle on the wet concrete. Inside, everything looked the same, the framed family photos, the smell of lemon cleaner. But the air felt hollow. I climbed the stairs to my old room. The posters had long been peeled off the walls, leaving faint tape marks behind. A stack of boxes sat untouched in the corner. Books, a few sweaters, a shoebox of letters. I crouched down, opening the shoebox. Inside were high school notes from friends, a photo booth strip with Rachel, a keychain Grandma had given me. I held it in my palm, the metal cool against my skin, and for a moment the ache in my chest deepened. This had once been home. Now it felt like a stranger's house. As I packed the last sweater into a bag, my eyes wandered to the dining room table below. I remembered Thanksgivings filled with laughter, Except the laughter was always tilted toward Lily. I remembered my casserole pushed aside. Dad's glass raised only for her achievements. The memories pressed down heavy, like a quilt soaked in rain. I locked the door behind me and carried the boxes to my car. The trunk groaned as it shut. When I slid into the driver's seat, I pulled out my leather wallet. The zipper teeth were stretched, the seams frayed, but it held everything. The evidence, Grandma's note, the repayment agreement. I set it on the passenger seat, staring at it in the dim glow of the streetlight. For years, I had wanted my parents' approval more than anything. Now I didn't even want it. I just wanted distance. The drive back to my apartment was silent, the city lights reflecting off wet asphalt. When I walked inside, the smell of coffee grounds and detergent welcomed me. My place was small, cluttered, imperfect, but it was mine. Rachel stopped by later with takeout, her arms full of containers that smelled of sesame chicken and fried rice. She kicked off her shoes, plopped onto my couch and handed me a fortune cookie. "You look like you lost 10 pounds of stress," she said, grinning. I laughed, the sound shaky but real. "More like 10 years. We ate in comfortable silence, the hum of the heater filling the gaps. When I cracked open the fortune cookie, the slip of paper read, "Boundaries build strength." I held it up, shaking my head. "Can you believe that?" Rachel leaned over, smiling softly. "Sometimes the universe doesn't whisper, it shouts." Later, after she left, I stood by my window, looking out at the street lamps casting golden pools on the wet pavement. My chest still ached, but underneath was something new. A fragile, glowing seed of relief. The family dinners were gone. The group chats were gone. But so was the gaslighting. So was the constant sense of being invisible. For the first time, the silence felt like space to breathe. A week after moving the last of my things, I got an unexpected call. It was Uncle Mike. His voice carried the weight of something long buried. "Emily," he said quietly, "I think it's time you knew the whole story." We met at a diner on the east side again. The same cracked vinyl booth. The same smell of frying oil clinging to the air. My leather wallet sat in front of me on the table, its zipper worn smooth from weeks of use. Mike stirred his coffee, eyes distant. "Your parents weren't just spoiling Lily because they loved her more. They were scared. Scared of losing her." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Lily wasn't their perfect child. She was their fragile one. She dropped out of school, ran with the wrong crowd, got into debt. They thought if they kept giving her things, cars, clothes, cash, she'd stay close, that she wouldn't spiral. But the money they used wasn't theirs. It was yours." The words sank like stones. My parents hadn't stolen out of greed alone. They had stolen out of fear, fear of losing Lily's love. Mike continued, his voice low. "They thought you were strong enough to survive without their support. You were the reliable one, the one who always worked, always endured. They convinced themselves you could carry the weight. And Lily, she needed to be bought." I stared at the wallet in my hands, my thumb tracing the creases in the leather. For years I had told myself they didn't see me. But the truth was more twisted. They saw me too clearly. They saw my resilience and used it as permission to abandon me. Tears blurred my vision. "So they punished me for being strong." Mike's eyes softened. "They punished you for surviving without them. And that's on them, not you." When I left the diner, the city air was sharp with the scent of rain on pavement. I walked aimlessly, the wallet heavy in my tote, the truth heavier still. My parents hadn't just stolen money. They had stolen trust, stolen the story of who I was in this family. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the repayment agreement spread out in front of me. I took a deep breath and began to write. Not numbers, not timelines, but words. My story. I wrote about the casserole mocked at Thanksgiving, the joint account withdrawals, the gaslighting, the inheritance, and now the final truth, that my strength had been weaponized against me. The words flowed like water, spilling onto page after page. When I finished, I slid the pages into the wallet, next to Grandma's note. I whispered aloud to no one but the quiet apartment. "This is mine now. My story. Not theirs." In the days that followed, I noticed a shift inside me. I no longer replayed their insults in my head. I no longer ached for their approval. Instead, I carried the wallet like a declaration. I was the keeper of the truth. And though the betrayal still stung, it no longer defined me. Spring arrived in Portland quietly, the gray skies giving way to soft patches of sunlight. Cherry blossoms bloomed along the sidewalks near my apartment, their petals drifting across car hoods like pink confetti. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe without the weight pressing down on my chest. The repayment agreement wasn't perfect. My parents dragged their feet, contested small details, sighed dramatically every time Janet's office called. But the difference was clear. The money was slowly coming back, piece by piece, no longer siphoned away into Lily's endless wants. One Saturday morning, I spread the papers across my kitchen table. Next to them sat the leather wallet, Grandma's gift, cracked at the edges, the zipper nearly worn smooth. Inside it now was more than just evidence. It held the story I had written, my vows, and Grandma's faded note. It had become a symbol of everything I had endured and everything I had reclaimed. Rachel stopped by with bagels, her laughter filling the apartment like sunlight. "You look lighter," she said, handing me a sesame bagel wrapped in paper. "I feel lighter," I admitted. "Not fixed, but free." She smiled, raising her coffee cup. "To freedom." Later that day, I drove out to the coast. The Pacific stretched wide and endless, waves crashing against the rocks, salt spray cool on my face. I sat on the hood of my Corolla, the wallet resting beside me, and let the wind whip through my hair. I thought about Lily, about Mom and Dad, about the hollow silence that had replaced the noisy, toxic family dinners. The ache was still there, but it had changed. It no longer felt like a wound. It felt like a scar, a reminder, not a prison. I pulled out the wallet, unzipped it, and slid Grandma's note into my hand. "Always keep track of what's yours." For years I thought she meant money. Maybe she did. But now I understood something deeper. Keep track of your boundaries, your worth, your truth. Don't let anyone convince you it belongs to them. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. I tucked the note back into the wallet and closed it gently, the zipper whispering shut. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was holding evidence. I felt like I was holding a legacy. I whispered into the wind as if Grandma could hear me. I kept track this time. Driving home under the fading light, I realized something. Family isn't about blood or loyalty at any cost. It's about who shows up when the world is heavy. Rachel with her late-night calls. Uncle Mike with his steady advice. Even the patients I cared for in the ICU who reminded me every day what resilience looks like. That was my family now. My chosen family. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I tucked the wallet back into my bag. Lighter now, but no less powerful. I stepped out of the car, the cool evening air brushing my face, and smiled. I had lost their approval. I had lost the illusion of being the good daughter. But I had gained something far greater. My voice, my freedom, and the certainty that I would never again let anyone define me with the word jealous. As I wasn't jealous. I was justified.